It was a gray Thursday morning in Montgomery County, Missouri, the kind that pressed down on your chest. Overhead, clouds swirled like dirty wool, and a cold wind threaded through the thin trees that lined Highway, a stretch of road so quiet it felt like time had forgotten it. Most folks in the area kept to themselves. Life moved slow, doors stayed shut. But on January 17, 2023, just after 9 a.m., a pair of deputies from the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office turned their cruiser into a long gravel driveway tucked behind overgrown brush. The house at the end was deceptively ordinary. White siding, brown shutters, an American flag on the porch. A plastic tricycle lay tipped over on the front lawn. To anyone else, it might have looked like a struggling family just trying to get by. But the deputies weren't there for a welfare check. They were there for a tip that would turn into one of the most disturbing child abuse cases in modern U.S. history. The anonymous caller had whispered one sentence: "There are children in cages under the beds." They didn't leave a name. They didn't wait for questions. Just hung up. As the deputies approached the porch, a woman in her 40s stepped out. Tight ponytail, cigarette between her fingers, eyes that didn't quite meet theirs. She identified herself as Amanda Stamper, one of the residents. Her voice was casual, but her body blocked the doorway like a wall. "We were just having breakfast," she said with a smile that didn't reach her cheeks. "What's this about?" Deputy Rollins spoke gently. "We'd like to step inside, ma'am. We've received some concerning information." Amanda's smile twitched. "I'll have to check with James, he's sleeping." The deputies didn't wait. They walked in. Inside the house, the air hit them first thick, damp, with a chemical sting underneath. Vinegar, old food, something else. The living room was cluttered, stained furniture, piles of clothes. A large flat-screen TV blared cartoons with no one watching. Dishes filled the sink. Cockroaches skittered across the kitchen floor. They moved down the hallway, and that's when they found it. A small bedroom, dimly lit, its door bolted from the outside. Deputy Rollins forced it open. Inside were two metal-framed bunk beds, and beneath each one, cages. Real, welded metal enclosures like something from an animal shelter. Inside the first cage was a boy, thin, pale, no more than 11. He was curled in a ball, eyes wide. His lips were cracked. He didn't speak. In the second cage, a younger child, maybe 7, sat cross-legged, rocking silently. Each cage had a padlock. Each one had no blanket, just a bucket in the corner for waste. Rollins radioed for backup. Within minutes, the property swarmed with law enforcement and social workers. The children were removed. Photos were taken. Evidence gathered. Amanda Stamper and James Mast, her partner, were placed in handcuffs without incident. Amanda screamed at the officers. "They're lying. We did what we had to. That's discipline." The children were rushed to Children's Division Protective Services in neighboring Warren County. As mandated reporters, the caseworkers recorded every detail. Every bruise, every whisper, every haunting silence. There were 4 children in total, all siblings. Their names are withheld here to protect their identities, but for clarity, we'll call them Isaiah, age 11, Liam, age 7, Maddie, age 6, and Noah, just 4 years old. Isaiah was the first to speak. He had been locked in the cage under his bed for over 6 months. Not just for an hour, not just overnight, for most of the day, every day. He was allowed out only to eat, use the bathroom, or if visitors came over, but even then, he was often forced to sit silently in a closet. He told investigators that if he cried, they sprayed something in his face. At first, the agents assumed it was mace, but it wasn't. It was vinegar. "They said it burns demons out of me," Isaiah said, barely audible, tracing a finger over the deep welts on his arms. Liam's story was similar. He said the vinegar made his eyes feel like they were on fire. He would wake up choking when they sprayed it on his face in the middle of the night. The cages. The children described how the cages were custom-made, built under their bunk beds, complete with steel mesh, welded frames, and lockable doors. Amanda's brother, a handyman, had helped install them. allegedly under the lie that they were custom bunk frames for kids with sleep disorders. But these weren't for sleeping. They were for containment, punishment, torture. Isaiah said they were called the dog boxes by Amanda. Noah, the youngest, couldn't say much, but every time he heard the word box, he screamed. The medical reports. When doctors examined the children, they found severe malnourishment, burns on the face and mouth consistent with vinegar exposure, untreated infections, developmental delays, especially in language and motor skills, signs of prolonged trauma, dissociation, and neglect. The children hadn't been to a doctor or school in years. No records, no vaccinations, no oversight. Amanda had pulled them out of school, claiming she was homeschooling them, but authorities found no evidence of any curriculum or materials. What they did find was a journal, Amanda's journal. In it were detailed records of what she called corrective discipline logs. Some of the entries read, Isaiah locked up 16 hours today. Still won't behave. Liam, vinegar X3 for screaming. Noah, smacked for peeing again. That journal would become a key piece of evidence in the trial to come. The neighbors begin to talk. When the story hit the local news, neighbors were shocked, or so they claimed. But some whispered to reporters that they'd seen things. I always thought it was weird. One neighbor told KMOV News, the kids never played outside, and when they did, they were quiet, like terrified. Another neighbor said they once heard screaming and called the police, but Amanda told officers it was just a tantrum. The children had behavioral issues, she said, special needs. No follow-up ever came. The media explosion. By January 20th, the story had gone national. Headlines read, Newspaper children found caged in Missouri home of horror. Newspaper parents used vinegar to burn the demons from kids. Newspaper custom-built torture beds discovered in small-town house. Cable news anchors debated the failures of the child welfare system. Twitter exploded with hashtags like hashtag Missouri cage case, hashtag justice for the four, hashtag stop the cycle. The morning after the children were rescued, Amanda, Michael, and Amanda's brother Derek were taken into custody. Amanda sat in the cold interrogation room, arms crossed, defiant. You don't understand those kids, she snapped. They're not normal. They needed control. Detective Maria Jensen stared at her, emotionless. So you locked them in cages and sprayed acid in their faces? Amanda blinked, then smirked. It was vinegar. It's natural. It's not abuse. But Maria had seen it all before. Delusions wrapped in pseudoscience, cruelty disguised as care. Michael's interview. Michael, the stepfather, was a different story. He broke down within minutes. Sweat soaked through his shirt. His fingers trembled on the table. Amanda said it was God's way, he muttered. She told me they were possessed, especially Isaiah. Said he had demons in him. I didn't know what to do. But you knew it was wrong, the detective pushed. You knew it wasn't discipline. Michael nodded slowly, tearfully. I did, but I didn't have the guts to stop it. Derek's silence. Derek, Amanda's brother, said nothing, not a word. Even when they showed him pictures of the cages, he welded himself. He just stared blankly ahead. His lawyer answered every question with one phrase. No comment. But silence wasn't innocence. Not when children were burned, locked, and broken with the tools he built. The charges. By January 23rd, the charges were official. Amanda Harper, 12 counts of felony child abuse, 4 counts of unlawful restraint, 2 counts of felony endangerment, 1 count of aggravated assault. Michael Harper, 8 counts of complicity to child abuse, 2 counts of neglect. Derek Miles, 5 counts of aiding and abetting child endangerment. Bail was denied. Public outrage was immediate. People camped outside the courthouse with signs that read, Cages are for criminals, not kids. Burn the demons? More like burn in hell. No more excuses. Protect the children. The evidence mounts. Inside Amanda's home, police collected 2 custom-built steel bunk beds with welded locking cages. Empty vinegar bottles hidden in bathroom cabinets. Restraints. Soiled children's clothing with dried blood. Dozens of torn-up notebooks. In Amanda's Google search history, how to discipline a demon child. Homemade punishment vinegar spray. Can you lock up adopted kids legally? The psychology. Court-ordered psychological evaluations revealed that Amanda had untreated paranoid personality disorder and potentially religious delusions. She believed Isaiah was possessed, that Maddie was a reincarnation of Lilith, that vinegar was holy fire. But the experts were clear. Mental illness is not a license for torture. The prosecutor's words. In a press conference, Prosecutor Kelly Rogers stood before flashing cameras. This is one of the most egregious cases of child torture I've seen in 17 years. These children were robbed of dignity, safety, and love. But we will give them one thing back: justice. It was early March when the courtroom doors finally opened. Reporters packed the benches. Advocates for child welfare filled the aisles. And seated behind the prosecution's table were the 3 children: Isaiah, Maddie, and Daniel, accompanied by trauma counselors and foster parents. They would not testify, but their presence spoke volumes. The opening statements. The prosecution started strong. This is not about discipline. This is not about parenting. This is about torture. The lead prosecutor, Kelly Rogers, told the jury, these children were kept in cages, starved, burned, isolated, for years, and all under the roof of a woman who called herself their mother. She paused. If we allow this to be called parenting, then we have failed. The defense argued otherwise. Amanda's attorney painted a picture of a troubled but misunderstood woman. Ms. Harper believed she was helping. Her beliefs may have been misguided, even dangerous, but they were not criminal in intent. The courtroom went quiet. One juror reportedly turned their head away. Witnesses take the stand. First came the lead detective, Maria Jensen. She walked the jury through the photographs, the welded cages, the vinegar spray bottles, the stained sheets, the broken child-sized furniture. Then came the neighbor, Mrs. Kelly from 2 houses down. I used to hear screams, she whispered, but Amanda would always say, they're special needs. They throw tantrums. I didn't want to intrude. I thought, maybe I was wrong. She wasn't. Then the school principal, Mr. Daniels, testified. Isaiah would come in with bruises. He stopped speaking altogether at one point. We reported it. We filed what we were supposed to. But the system, he choked. The system missed it. Amanda's turn. Against her lawyer's advice, Amanda chose to testify. She walked to the stand in handcuffs, still in her prison orange. The courtroom held its breath. They were dangerous, she said. You don't know what it's like to live with monsters. Gasps echoed through the gallery. Isaiah talked to shadows. Maddie used to try and touch fire. Daniel would stare at me for hours without blinking. They weren't kids. Not really. Do you regret it? The prosecutor asked. Amanda paused. I regret trusting demons. Verdict day. Took the jury only 9 hours. They filed in. The judge read the decision. Guilty on all counts. Amanda Harper was sentenced to 112 years in prison. Michael Harper, 65 years, with no parole until 40. Derek Miles, 40 years, and labeled a threat to minors. There were no cheers in the courtroom, only silence and quiet tears. The aftermath. Outside, reporters swarmed. Justice has been served, Kelly Rogers told them, blinking away emotion. But justice doesn't erase trauma. It doesn't return childhood. It only stops the harm from continuing. Inside a safe house nearby, Isaiah looked out a window. Is it over now? He asked his counselor. She nodded, and for the first time in months, he smiled. The Harper case didn't end in the courtroom. It rippled outward through the community, across state lines, and into the highest corners of the child protection system. Everyone had seen the photos. Everyone had heard the screams. And no one could forget the cold expression Amanda Harper wore as she described her own children as monsters. But the real story didn't end with justice. It ended with healing and what healing truly costs. For children, 4 paths. Isaiah, now 13, still flinches when someone knocks on a door. He's in therapy. He plays piano now, not because he's good at it, but because the music fills the silence where fear used to live. He doesn't talk about the cages, his foster dad says, but he always sleeps with the door open. Maddie, age 10, is learning to draw again. In her sketchbook, there are no cages, just trees, birds, a red bicycle. She once drew a house with no windows, and when asked why, she answered, "So no one can look in and tell lies about being okay." Daniel, the youngest, is still regaining speech. He hums when he's scared. It used to sound like panic. Now it sounds like hope. A nation responds. The media dubbed it the bunk bed cage case. In the weeks after the verdict, calls to Child Protective Services spiked 300%. Schools reevaluated their reporting systems. One state senator pushed for mandatory home inspections for all kinship adoptions. The family next door still regrets not reporting the noises. "We thought we were minding our own business," Mr. Kelly said. "Now I wonder if we were minding evil." Lessons burned in memory. In a televised interview, one of the original case officers broke down mid-sentence. "We found toys under the bed," she said. "Little plastic dinosaurs covered in dust, like they forgot how to play. Not every case gets attention. Not every child is rescued in time. But this one forced people to look." The narrator's voice, closing words. We ask ourselves how evil hides in plain sight, how neighbors don't knock, how schools miss signs. But maybe the real question isn't what we missed, but what we choose to believe when something feels too awful to be true. Because the truth was there. The screams were real. The cages were welded. And those children were waiting, hoping that someone would finally see them. We saw them too late, but now we never look away. If the story moved you, don't stay silent. Like this video, share it, and subscribe to Cold Case Chronicles, because every view helps bring attention to stories the world tried to forget.